Okay, and here we have the average responses to the questions from the Likert scale. So for the first question, that's how high were the teacher's expectations for you. Obviously, there's a big difference between high and low expectations. That's to be expected since students, self-selected their teachers here. The second question here is just kind of interesting. Is how eager were you to attend this course? Um, Not much of a difference between the high expectation and low expectation. As I mentioned earlier, my hypothesis is that the academic rigor kind of turns attending these classes into a daily grind, and maybe is not always the most enjoyable experience. It's more like work than something enjoyable. The third question, which was how would you rate your motivation in this class? Obviously, you can see there's a big difference between the high expectation teacher and the low expectation teacher. Another big area of emphasis here is the next question. Question four is how much does this teacher encourage you to do your best? Obviously, there's a big difference between the high expectation and low expectation teacher. It might be an area where students identified the teacher as being high expectation or low expectation. And again, we have another pretty small gap here. And the fifth question is how eager were you to participate? Again, only slightly higher with the high expectation teacher and the low expectation teacher. When you felt like giving up, how likely were you to keep trying? Again, for both teachers, the students kind of said that they were likely to keep trying, but again, it was higher for the high expectation teacher and low expectation teacher. This suggests that the students' resiliency might have some roots outside of necessarily just the teacher. They might have some external motivation, such as trying to get into college, or maybe their parents would get mad at them if they didn't get good grades or something like that. The next one was how confident your ability were you to master the subject matter. There's another one, not really a big difference between the high expectation teacher and the low expectation teacher, but both bars are kind of high. So the students, regardless of their teacher, were still pretty confident in their ability to master the content, regardless of having a high or low expectation teacher. And then the next one, which is the big one, is overall, how much did you learn from this teacher? So big difference between the high expectation and low expectation teacher. The high expectation teacher, the students reported they were much more likely to they reported learning much more from the high expectation teacher than the low expectation teacher. And finally, interestingly, on the last one, students actually slightly said slightly favored the content for the low expectation teacher than the high expectation teacher prior to taking the course. So they actually said they were more interested in the subject before taking the courses with the low expectation teacher than the high expectation teacher. So this kind of suggests that maybe their prior interest in the subject, not necessarily the deciding factor here.